Welcome everybody to the latest Biztory video blog. My name is Tim and I work as a technical consultant at Biztory. Today we will be talking about a new functionality which has come to Tableau Prep, being the use of scripts in your Tableau Prep flow. I will show you how to set things up and how you can make use of this new functionality. We'll start off by connecting to some data. It doesn't matter what the data actually is, I will be discussing it later. Our first focus point will be, how do I make use of a script? It's very simple. Simply by clicking on the plus sign, we see this new option here, which is called Add Script. So I'll proceed and I'll click Add Script. Alright, now what do we need to configure before we can continue? The first decision you need to make is which connection you will be using in your Tableau Prep flow. We won't discuss which connection is the best for you. It will most of the time depend on what you want to do with your data. In this little tutorial, we will make use of a Tableau server, which can be set up locally or on a remote server. So I select Tableau Python Tableau server and I click on Connect to Tableau Python Tableau server. As you can see, Tableau Prep wants us to fill in the server location and the port. In case you haven't installed Python and Tableau server yet, I would like to guide you to the link at the bottom of our blog and proceed to install Python and Tableau first and then come back to this tutorial. Once you have done that, you can easily set up your own Tableau server by navigating to your terminal. Starting Tableau can be done simply by navigating to the location where you have installed Tableau and then starting Tableau by simply typing startup.sh and enter. And as you can see from the command line, Tableau is starting up. The information you need to connect is the port. By default, Tableau will start on port 9004. Let's go back to Tableau Prep. So, as I'm connecting locally, I can fill in localhost, and the port, as we saw from the command line interface, is 9004. And I will click on Sign In. Now, the next thing we need to do is specify a file name. Now, what type of file is this? In our case, it will be a .py file. So, how does that look like? Now, for the first demo of the scripts, we will be running an actual empty script. What do you mean, empty script? Let me show you. I have created a Python file called nothing.py. What do we see here? Def nothing df return df. Def is the way how we can make functions in Python. Nothing is the name of the function we are creating, and df just means that we are feeding our full data frame as an argument to our function. Normally you would start doing operations here, but as I mentioned earlier, we will just create an empty function which will do no transformations on our data, but will simply return the data frame to us. And as you can see here, I have saved this file to my desktop and called the file nothing.py. Let's go back to Tableau Prep and connect to the file. So I look for the file nothing.py and I click on accept. Then we see that Tableau Prep says no function name specified, enter a function name. It is important to know that when Tableau Prep asks for your function name, that it literally means the name of your function as it's being defined in your .py file. In this case, it will be nothing, and that's what we will be filling in Tableau Prep. So I click on the script and I fill in nothing. Alright, let's see. Alright, cool, no errors. Let me rename our script. Let's call it nothing. Let's add an output node and let's see whether we can run the script. Alright, our prep flow has run, and as we can see, without any errors. So let's have a look whether something happened to our data. Nope, everything stayed the same. Also in our output, we just took our data, ran it through an empty script, and then outputted it. Now the important thing to know is that even though on the surface nothing seemed to be happening, actually under the hood things were happening. I want to show you this by navigating back to my terminal, which can be used for monitoring what our Tableau server is doing under the hood. The first thing I would like to stress out is here. You see, import pandas as PD. Pandas, the package which allows us to deal with data frames, is being imported automatically. So it's not needed to type it in your .py files because Tableau will do it for you. Then secondly, it also defines the data formats Tableau Prep will be expecting at the end of your code flow. So as we can see, those familiar with Tableau, we recognize the string, the boolean, the integer, the decimal, date format, and date time format. Then this part is being run automatically, and at the end you can see it runs the code we have specified in our file, which results in no transformation on our data whatsoever. Now let's actually try to do something, and in order to show you, I would like to open this little script called hello world.py. In this case, our definition of our function, the name of our function is called hello world, and again our data frame is being fed as an argument to our function. Now we see that we are creating a column called example, which is populated by the string called hello world. Let's add this file to our prep flow instead of the previous one. So I will remove this script, I will remove this one, and I will add my, so we select Tableau again, we connect, click on the browse button, and then I go and find hello world.py, and there it is. And the name of the function, you might already guess it. The name of my function in this case is hello world. So that's what I will be filling in my Tableau prep flow. I will add an output to it, and I should be able to run the flow. Now, as you can see, nothing actually happened. Let me, hello world, or hello world script did not generate a new column. It's very important to know that when using these kind of scripts, that you cannot create a new column from your Python code. So if you want to have a column populated with the string hello world, we will need to make sure that that column already exists. When we go back and have a look at the code, you see that we should have a column called example. Let's go ahead and actually do that. So by creating a calculated field, I will name it example, and I will pre-populate it with the letter O. It is of course important to make sure that you format your columns correctly, otherwise your flow will not run. So now I have this column example, and let me run the flow again. Haha, and now we can have a look at the last column, and we see that our hello world string has been inserted into our data frame. Now for the last part, we will do something which could be considered actually useful. But before we start, let me point out the following. People who have been working with Tableau Desktop might be familiar with table calculations. For example, if we want to create a calculated field, one might expect to find the index function in Tableau Prep, which is not the case. Or for example, the rank functions. These functions are not in Tableau Prep because, as we can see from the drop-down, table calculations or window calculations are not part of the function library. Perfect use case for scripts. Imagine that we can make use of a Python file which would do the indexing for us. Here I have opened the file called index.py for you. Well, what's happening in this file? We see that we are defining a function. The name of the function is called index. We will be feeding the data frame to our function, but then most importantly, we will be doing something with our data. As you can see here, we will be indexing a column called index. Let me go back to Tableau Prep and connect to the file to see what happens. Now, let's add the index.py file. I click on the plus button, click on add script, and I connect, and I browse to my file, which is called index.py. So here we go. As we have learned, don't forget to give the name of the function. I add an output to it, and I run the actual file. Let me quickly call this index, and again we don't have any errors, but we also see that nothing really happened. The main reason for that is that we referred to a column called index, which actually does not exist in my original dataset. How can we make sure it works? I create a column called index. I will populate it with an integer 0, click on save, and I will run my flow again. And if everything went right, we can see that our Python function has indexed every row in my dataset.